Welcome to the fourth in our series of podcasts based around Kregg's book.
Yes, called
Get the
F out of my life.
I hesitated there.
Yes. Yeah, that's right, because you don't want to say the actual word because there is a reason we say F. But you'll have to read the book to know.
Yes, I didn't want to follow through with my F.
Correct.
So the book is called Get the F out of My Life. And for whom did you write the book? Did you have
I wrote it for men going through a tough breakup and having a hard time moving on. So
did you have married guys in mind, or guys in long-term boyfriend-girlfriend relationships? Does it matter?
You know what? I think this applies to anyone who's having a tough time. Maybe you fell head over heels for somebody and it only lasted 6 months. Those people may still need it, right? Because, and I talk a lot in the book about our hormonal reactions, and we've talked in previous podcasts about limerence, which is a big hormonal response to kind of, quote, falling in love with somebody, even if it's not true love, but you still have a hard time extricating, chapter 1, from those relationships if you are deeply affected by it. So, but it's geared somewhat for people in long-term relationships that did break up and they're having a hard time recovering. So,
due for release in June 2019.
That is our big hope. It's been sent off to the editor and should be on Amazon this month. We're recording in June of 2019, so
it could be one of those books in which it would make a great gift for someone. And it's interesting that...
A lovely thought. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And Father's Day is coming up, by the way.
Yes. So, it's an unfortunate juxtaposition.
Right.
But if you know somebody who's been in a poor relationship and is going out of it, if you can't be there to help them for whatever reason, I think this would make a great gift. Mind you, a relatively tough gift to give, I think.
Correct, because it's kind of saying, oh, you appear to be having a tough time here. But you know what has happened to me is, as I've described the book to a few different people just here locally, a couple of people have said to me, I know somebody who needs that book. So it's happening more than we think, maybe.
Particularly because it's for men.
Yes.
And the normal sort of state of thinking about is, the guy will get over it or in any way he can, which is why you wrote the book, because men don't get over relationships.
Or there are some guys that do, and they don't need this book. But there are lots of guys that are taking it harder than they thought they would, or it's affected them more, so. And
it's a guide that's remarkable for its clarity, I think, because it's a 9-step guide, right?
8 steps.
8 steps.
And I've tried to be pithy. It's going to be about a 100-page book.
Right.
And try to get to the point, cite research, and get to the point. And each chapter has specific, actionable suggestions. So
it is funny, talking about breakups. Last week we talked about what was that chapter?
Recuperate. We did, right? Last week. Yeah.
And you triggered some memories in me about my first love with
yes.
whom I broke up. I left my love in one city and moved to another city.
Oh.
And, then there was the attempt at maintaining the relationship. Of course, it did not work. And
because you did not fully extricate.
Correct.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I've followed all.
Bat. And I recommend in the book 100% extrication, unless you have kids together, which is a separate thing that we cover in the book. But
I was 21. Not married,
but you did move to another town. That was an attempt at extrication, but then you stayed in touch or tried a long distance relationship.
Yeah, well, I got a new job in the new town.
I see.
So I had it was a life career move. But again, my point is that the book would have been very helpful had I known about it.
Now, here's a question. If somebody gave that to you, would you feel kind of weird or insulted?
Oh, I would.
As if you can't handle it on your own,
Well, I wouldn't now. Let's think about a younger person. So
I'm
57 now, so
right.
I have a little bit of experience in life. But would a person now
Good
say
question.
20, a guy of 20?
Anybody listening, if they want to leave us a comment or send us an email, we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
But Today, shall we get to a chapter 4? So we went through extricate. You got to leave the relationship behind and not have any contact.
With a meat cleaver.
Correct. And then contemplate, think about it, but journal, so that's an organized way to think about what happened. Then recuperate, get some help, get counseling and whatever you need to make sure. Don't try to do it alone, in other words, okay? So start the process of helping yourself by reaching out to others. And then this chapter is called Collaborate. Everything ends with 8, ATE. And the subtitle is Get Together with Allied Friends and Family as Often as Possible. And I use the word allied because they need to be on your side, kind of. If you have mutual friends with your ex, it may either be weird with them or they may take the other person's side. And, just make sure that the people that you're hanging out with and are on your team, so to speak,
This sounds to me a little bit like spreading the misery.
Oh, well, I do make a point, and we talked about that, and I also talk about in this chapter is this is the good times with your friends because, and if you got a good friend that you can share some of the pain you're going through, that's perfectly fine, but be careful not to stay on that, and then they may either start avoiding you if all you can talk about is the crying and your beer stuff, right? And you'll lose the connection that this is meant for. This is meant to help start replacing the oxytocin that you lost, which is the great bonding that you had with your wife or girlfriend, and that's lost when you separate. But you need to put some back. It's the social bonding hormone, essentially, oxytocin. And so, but getting together with your friends helps with that. And I even wrote it, kind of came up with a phrase, because we talk about how women's stress response is tend and befriend. They'll get together with their friends, and they'll tend to each other. So that's a natural thing they do. We don't do that with our pain. And so I suggest naming ours Hang and Harangue. And that's get together, hang out with your friends, and harangue, which means make fun of each other, put each other down, which is the guy's way of showing affection, right? So you get together and have good times with your friends. You need that badly during this time. You've got to keep your oxytocin up. Because sometimes people will withdraw further to lick their wounds, right?
Right, and I would be an example of that. I would be a withdrawing kind of person and try to sit in a dark room and figure it out for myself.
Right, which you do need to do some of that, right? And that's the contemplate step. And hopefully maybe journal about it or get a little more organized about it instead of, because without any organization, it becomes an obsession. And with no plan, it stays an obsession, you see.
This requires to collaborate like that, to have social functions specifically with guys and specifically with known allied guys.
Yes.
It'll take you to organize it.
And yes, and I also talk about in the book about do it anyway, meaning you're not going to feel like doing it, but you got to do it anyway because you. Now, again, you don't need this book if you get over it all on your own, doing it your way. But if you are struggling, a lot of time has gone by. And if you read Reddit and some of these boards, and you see people do struggle sometimes for years, actually, to get over a strong breakup, right? And so you need a plan then if you're in that situation.
There's a kind of reverse checklist thing going on here, because I think, guys, they're like, even this topic today, collaborate, we got together and I said, I'm not quite sure what you mean about this. I think the guy who can get through a relationship breakup well and is going through the steps, even though he doesn't know that he's going through these 8 steps. It's good to know why you're doing the steps. So you mentioned the key there is the oxytocin, right?
Exactly.
Why am I spending time with my allied male buddies?
Yeah, why do I?
And the answer is because there's a hormonal reason to do it.
It is the social bonding hormone, and that's what makes us feel safe, and it builds trust. And that trust gets broken when you lose a relationship, right? So, but, you can't do without the bonding, or you become, you can become more cynical and more negative and everything. So, but the goal of this is to try to recover. So we're talking about what builds good feelings back. And
there is a tendency within that to recruit people to see your side of things a little.
Oh, of course. Now, right. Well, go ahead with your thought. And then,
no, only that I can, I'm picturing in my mind, a group of guys who might be playing tennis or squash or even having a beer or a barbecue or something. Yeah. And you want them, even though you know they're allied because you've organized it that way, you want them to be...
To trash her.
Thank you. That's the expression I was looking for.
And you can. Remember, we're encouraging haranguing. So the harangue can be on the X if you want. Now, and the reason if a person only does that, they may not get better as fast unless they are doing some sort of counseling or a group or some way to process their pain. Okay, I am pro processing your pain with a professional if you want, as long as you do move things forward. It's not just for you to vent every week and get nowhere. You vent it out so you can talk about, because I do know some people who are going through very dark times after a relationship. And for the first year after a big breakup for men, there's a high suicidality rate for men. So it's a serious subject we're talking about. So you do need to be able to process that, the crap, the shit, that you're feeling. But with your friends, because remember, your friends have the same fix-it brain as you. So if you keep talking about all this shit, they're going to try to fix it. And they may not be able to help you. And then they're going to get frustrated because they can't help you. And then they may not hang out as much. You need the hang and harangue time. So talk to a good friend if they're okay with it. But maybe put a time limit on it.
Yeah. There are two ideas that occur to me as you're talking. One is it's up to you, the person who's in the being hurt position, to say, like you say, cut it off almost, to say, all right, I'm done now, guys. Let's not go any further with this. Even
better, yeah. If you do it yourself, you say, okay, I know I've burdened you enough with this.
Let's move on to something else.
Right.
Which is good, but that takes a lot of self-understanding.
It does.
To be able to do that.
And I go through in the book why it's hard to do self-control measures, especially during this time, and how to build that up. But I think of it too. The other point is, it occurs to me too, that every time this happens to people when they break up, the good and bad qualities of the person with whom you've broken up are then cast into stark light and dark, right? Yes. So in the case of a woman, you might know that she was a great cook or something, or you really enjoyed cooking with her, or the sex was fantastic or something. Right. But then she would. The bad thing was, and then the sex wasn't so good after all,
right?
Or whatever you start painting them all negatively,
yes, or just cast it black and white, So the things that you didn't like, maybe
they eat their peas one at a time, as Seinfeld would say.
Right, so it's the classic thing that then becomes the thing.
Yes,
so you might.
I couldn't stand
the way she did that.
Right, but that's okay. See, to me, with your friends, as long as everybody knows that you're discharging, you're venting and discharging. And it's up to you how much you want to reveal about the bad parts about your ex. It's probably better not to go too deeply into that. Just discharge about other things, and you get just as good of a bonding experience.
And as always, if you can turn it into a humorous thing, better still.
Please do.
Very tricky to do.
Because laughing your ass off is one of the best things that can happen during times like this.
And making your buddies laugh about it too.
Right.
Anyway,
right.
I interrupted you.
Yes. No. I was just going through some various... Dr. Leonard Sachs wrote a book called Why Gender Matters, and he does a good breakdown of boys and girls, men and women, and he says, women will interact face to face. That's why they're comfortable tending and befriending, right? So they interact face to face. They can have a dinner together and talk about things. Guys don't want to do it that way. And he says they interact shoulder to shoulder is better. So that's why watching sports together is good. Sitting at a bar at a pub and having beer, not necessarily facing each other. Guys are more comfortable with, like I say, the hanging and haranguing than the intimate talk. And that's okay. Now, by the way, nothing applies 100%. If you're a type of guy that likes more sensitive philosophical talking and you've got a friend like that, go for it, But I'm suggesting, in general, men get more out of it by doing something else and discharging and venting and joking and just enjoying themselves.
One problem I see
Yes.
here is that if you were blindsided by the breakup, if she
Yes.
broke up with you and you didn't see it coming, or really actually under any circumstance,
Yeah.
there's a certain judgment that falls upon, say, me,
Yeah.
because I chose this horrible woman. And I can see a guy saying to me, well, you picked her, none of us liked her.
Oh, well,
Right.
okay, and that can happen, right? We saw it pretty clear,
We couldn't believe you stuck with her for all that time.
Yeah, I mean, we know it was just the body you were after because she was certainly not a nice person, but or whatever.
And my reaction to that is, ouch, that hurts.
Or they may not say that. They may just talk about other things. There's a funny Seinfeld as far as that goes, isn't there, where they do trash the woman, but then they end up getting back together. And then what do you do with that awkward moment? It's probably better to not trash the ex, work on other discharge activities.
Right. This is a nice loop to me back to extricate. So
Yes.
cut it off and cut off whatever.
Then you're not talking about her.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Or you've decided that you won't then make the connection that you made then in your mind to say, well, wasn't I an idiot for choosing it? You made the decision, and they made the decision to break up and extricate. There's a kind of a layering of effects here, which is
absolutely
valuable.
Yeah. Maybe time for some ahoys, which are specific actionable suggestions in the book. Okay, so according to Oxford University's Social and Evolutionary Neuroscience Research Group, they figured out that men get the greatest benefits of physically getting together twice a week. So, you've got science to back it up. But you got to physically get together. It's not a social media outreach, and it's that you don't get the same physiological, hormonal response by just saying hello on Facebook or Twitter or whatever else that you may be on,
Okay.
You can keep those activities up for yourself. But so the idea would be, and I give suggestions of what you can do also in the book, but a poker night, if one doesn't exist, maybe it's time that you start one and see if you can get 4 or 5 guys, and that could be once a week. That could be one of your, and you and I and a couple other guys get together, usually once a week for a coffee klatch, as you call it. Yes,
that's the Jewish side of me coming in.
Okay, and we do the hanging and haranguing, and we have a good time with it. And I write in the book that it's a lifeline against life stresses. And because that's what guys need. So a coffee once a week, sports watching, going to a game,
or sports doing, going
sports
for a
doing,
walk or a jog together is
yeah.
a great way to do it, which is good for you anyway.
A workout buddy.
Right.
You see, whatever it is, get creative, but find ways to physically get together. If you can't do it twice a week because of work and everything else, at least once a week. So you got science to back you up on that.
One thing that does strike me as well, now we talk about it, is married versus single. So if you've got a lot of married guy friends, this won't be as easy as we're perhaps making out.
Correct.
And that will require more effort on your behalf to collaborate.
Yeah, and one of my suggestions there is to get back in touch with old friends or other friends. Like the woman who has kind of made me come up with the name of this book, at the time, after we broke up, I was feeling pretty crappy and lonely and everything. And I hooked back up with some single friends of mine, that I had lost a little bit of touch with. And we started hanging out again together. So, I mean, you are responsible for getting better, right? It's not going to come to you. And that's why when people just retreat and lick their wounds, they don't get better, because they're in a little bit of a victim status there. And you do need that for a little while. Go ahead, you need to go ahead and feel sorry for yourself for a little while. But then the actions you take is what will make you feel better. As a man, as a person, and hormonally.
One activity that springs to mind as well is meetup groups would
Absolutely.
be great, but not relationship meetup groups.
Correct.
Or not singles groups.
No.
None of that. Like
a sailing meetup group.
Exactly.
Or fishing or
yoga groups.
Whatever
anything.
it is, darts, Come up with stuff where you're getting together with others, not doing it on your own. The collaborate step of this book is getting together with others. And by the way, if you have kids, your kids can be part of that step, but you just cannot talk to them about your ex. In other words, just have good times with them. Cook a dinner together.
Go get ice cream.
Whatever it is. Yeah. But keep that, because that good bonding thing you definitely need. Some other suggestions. Oh, and I had a suggestion to try something new. Like I hear some people say something like, "Oh, I hate hockey." So they won't go to a match, even if their buddy is into hockey. Why not? It's a new life. Why not go with your friend and just enjoy the time with your friend? And you may even enjoy it, right? So you got to come out of a little bit out of your old black and white ways of, nah, I'm not into it. Well, maybe you should be into it now. Try it out. See what happens, And here's some other, you mentioned Meetup, which is a great one, and that's all over the United States, so that's really good now, to find something of interest to get together, and other people plan it, so it's great. You just show up,
And even if you do it once, do 10 different ones, I think is a...
And you might make new friends. See?
Yeah.
The collaborate can be new friends as well, not just old friends. And then here's 3 different websites that are, if you want to do a good deed as you're getting out there and doing things with others. Volunteermatch.org, handsonnetwork.org, and idealist.org. Those are all good deed get-togethers, like Meetup, but for doing good deeds.
Got it.
So the key to this step is don't stay alone. Get together with allied friends, family, new friends, old friends. Just make sure and get together with others.
And the book is called
Get the F Out of My Life.
And for whom is it intended?
It is intended for good guys going through a bad time.
All right, so you've been listening to me, Tim, and Kregg over there, the author of the said book, which will be out in June of 2019, or shortly thereafter.
Yes.
Next week, we'll be doing Chapter 5. What's
yes.
that?
Good question.
We'll keep it
I
a
have
surprise.
to look up my own book, but I believe it's Rejuvenate.
All right, and if it's not...
If not, or Participate.
Okay.
Okay.
Talk about putting you on the spot.
No kidding. I got to memorize my book, I think. See you next time.